Welcome back. I'd like to present our next presenter. This is Christian, who will be talking to us about altruism and human happiness.
As I said, I'm Christian Travers, and I did my study on altruism and happiness. So I find it important to define those two. In my study, I defined altruism as a selfless acts of an individual in order to help another at cost to his or herself. And I defined happiness as a desirable human characteristic that is not readily available, yet when achieved is a pleasurable state. So my research question was, is there a relationship between altruism and happiness amongst highly motivated high school students? And my null hypothesis was that there is a relationship between altruism and happiness amongst the highly motivated high school students. So what type of study? So I did for the past 5 weeks I've been working on a sociology pilot study. A pilot study is a study usually done before a larger study, and the purpose of it is to gauge the necessary resources and funding needed for the follow-up larger study. So the type of study I did, I made a 12-question mixed method survey that included 5-point questions that were to evaluate altruistic behaviors, and 5-point questions constructed to evaluate participants' self-reported happiness. So I also had 2 qualitative questions in order to make sure that the participants understood what altruism and happiness, and so I could make sure that the data I was receiving from them was as accurate as possible. Does that make sense? So this is the actual surveys that I handed out. As you can see, it has 5 questions that are qualitative. They asked how frequently in the past 3 months the individual has done an altruistic act, and how many times from never to 5 or more times in the 3 months. And I did it for giving money to a stranger, allowing a stranger to cut ahead in line, giving up a seat to a stranger, carried belongings for a stranger, and trying to cheer up someone who is feeling down. Then I had a qualitative question asking them what happiness meant to them. And then I had 5 more quantitative questions to gauge happiness by asking how they felt happiness, as well as synonyms to happiness, to get a broader spectrum, but basically the same question. And then I had the last qualitative question, which was what does altruism mean to you, to try to make sure that it was giving good data. So ANOVAs. So ANOVA is analysis of variance, and I used ANOVAs to compare happy participants with unhappy participants. and see if that had any effect on their altruistic behaviors. Statistical significance, I also use analysis of variance to gauge the statistical significance, and what that is it's measurement of percent chance, or the probability that the results are obtained by chance. So if it's 5%, 5% is the most that it should be. 0 is the most ideal. In my answers, no significant difference was evidence to support that happy participants were more or less altruistic than the non. Okay, so the results from the table and graph. So these are all the results I got from, I completely got rid of all neutral answers because that wasn't really part of my study, and I only put the happy and unhappy answers for each of the questions. But as you can see, my statistical significance was way too low. My lowest one is 5.4%, which is 0.4% what it should above what it should be to be a usable one, and my highest was 99.3%, which is obviously not good either. So I then turned all that data into 5 different graphs. Each graph measures the person's what they answered for the happiness questions, and measures the means of what they answered for the self-reported altruistic behaviors. And as you'll see, they're more or less the same. This one was 13 individuals reported to be happy, and 5 individuals reported to be not happy, for a total of 18, which is not the most ideal pool for my survey. I would have liked maybe a larger pool. Then I made for each one joyful, not joyful. This had 14 people in this graph, and 3 in this one, for a total of 17. Hopefulness, 16 people reported to be hopeful, and 2 reported to not be. Optimism, 17 people reported to be optimistic, and only 4 reported to not be optimistic. And then contentment, 17 people reported to be content, and only 1 reported being not content. And apparently that individual also reported all 5s in their altruistic behaviors, which I found strange, but I think it's possible that it's a flawed one. Conclusion, based on the results of the study I did, there is an interrelationship between altruism and happiness, at least among highly motivated high school students. So I concluded that there's 2 possible explanations for the lack of relationship between altruism and happiness. The first being is that there is no relationship, and the second being is that the sample size was too small to be able to show a trend between altruism and happiness. So, as I said, it is so these are my references. So, as I said, it is a pilot study, so I intended to, my senior year, continue it into a larger study with more participants to get a larger pool for more accurate and hopefully to be able to see a trend versus this very small pool and no real relation. So I would like to thank my mentor Lucas Hanna, my advisor Rebecca, my RAs Christopher and Sophia, and all the FSI staff for making my summer really, really awesome. I'd also like to thank my two sponsors, Salzman Family Foundation and Excel Energy. Any questions? Daniel?
So on the graphs, what were you measuring by accurate?
So that was the means of the answers for altruistic questions. Each one of these corresponds to a question and the mean of the group for each question that answered optimistic or not optimistic. Alex?
You mentioned this being a pilot study for will that other study also be focused around highly motivated high school students, or are you broadening the group?
As much as I would like to continue that focus, I don't think I would be able to find a large enough group of highly motivated high school students in order to get a big enough pooling to have accurate results. Josh?
Are you planning to do that in study of the program, or are you just going to give yourself across entire schools?
I was planning to do that as a senior project with my own school. Yes.